Every time I make one of these videos, I notice the sheer abundance of pills in the background. Hi, I'm chronically ill. So today's video is going to be a bit different. I'm not talking about, well, I am going to be talking about a couple specific books, but that is because the topic of today is a complaint I have for many YA authors. I have noticed in my recent reading, because I've been reading a lot lately, that authors will make a very smart character or a character with specific traits, and then those traits will change in the sequels to fit plot lines. And I just wanted to talk about why that doesn't always work and why that leads to really frustrating and poor plots. So, for example, let's take Jude from the Cruel Prince series. Jude is introduced in the first book as a very intelligent protagonist. She's very knowledgeable about the Fae, she knows what she's doing, and she's very smart. This is one of her main characteristics that is introduced to us in the first book. Throughout the second and third book, I noticed that she got significantly more dumb and less knowledgeable about the Fae just for certain plotlines, specifically at the end of The Wicked King and going into Queen of Nothing. So at the end of The Wicked King, I'm not going to spoil it, but something happens where Jude has to go back to the mortal world for a little bit. Like, Jude has to go back to the mortal world, and she has to make a decision and a bunch of stuff like that. So, without spoiling it, she goes to the mortal world, and there is a very obvious thing that she can do to solve her predicament, but she doesn't do it. If this was the same Jude from the first book, this predicament, she would have known exactly how to end it. And that is why it's so frustrating. Is Holly Black had created a character who was very intelligent, who knew her world, who knew everything about her world, she knew Fae riddles, she knew how to handle riddles, she knew how to get around everything, she knew how to deal with the Fae. So when she is suddenly very stupid at the end of The Wicked King going into Queen of Nothing, specifically with this situation, it doesn't work. It didn't make sense, it made her character seem not like herself, and she was stupid throughout the entirety of Queen of Nothing too, which was one of my biggest qualms with that book. Is she knows the people around her, and she just tends to forget things about them, and it just doesn't work, and it just leads to really frustrating and bad plot lines. It just doesn't work for the book. And another example that I'm going to give right now is Shadowfall not Shadowfall, I always call it Shadowfall, it's Flamefall by Rosaria Munda, which I just read this. Now, unlike Jude's character, Lee is introduced in the first book as a bit of a thick-headed idiot. Like, he's a jock, he's known for being a bit stupid. But in this situation, there are things that he is specifically not stupid about, and that specifically is Annie, or Antigone, and he's never stupid when it comes to her. In Flamefall, he was so stupid when it came to Antigone. He never knew what Antigone wanted. He was constantly like, well, I don't know why she did this. The Lee from the first book would have known exactly why she was doing this. Also because, according to the way the plot flowed, it made it so obvious why she was doing the things she was doing. Again, without spoilers. She was doing all these things to protect the revolution, protect the people that were being affected by the revolution, and she was doing all these things for the betterment of society, even if some people got hurt in the process. She made some bad decisions, but at the same time, the Lee from the first book would have known what she was doing, and that is why I had a lot of qualms with Flamefall. Because when you set up characters who know specific things, who are very knowledgeable in certain areas, it does not work when you're suddenly like, well, they didn't understand this, and that is why this plotline happened, because there was a misunderstanding. If you're going to have a misunderstanding in a story, or a miscommunication, or just a character who is confused about a situation, you need to have them be confused about a situation that they don't know enough about. When it comes to characters who know a lot about each other, like Lee and Annie, they know each other so well. They grew up together, they're in love. We don't really know. I think they're in love. It's confusing. But they care about each other so deeply, and they know each other so well. And just like leading into that and using all those miscommunications to build a plot, it didn't work. Because this is two characters that they know each other too well. So when you're building a plot line around them not knowing what the other one is doing, it just doesn't work. And it's the same with the Cruel Prince, with Jude not knowing what the Fae are doing, not knowing how to handle riddles in the second and third book. That is something Jude has proved to be able to handle in the first book. You can't take a character's education level on a certain subject and dial it back for a plot line. You don't... Okay, so like in real life, if you know a lot about a subject, you're not suddenly gonna not know anything about it. That just doesn't make sense. So it doesn't work, and it's been really frustrating, and I've noticed it in so many YA novels recently, and it's such a lazy plot line. It really, really needs to change, and I hope more YA authors cut out this trope because it's just so frustrating. If you have characters who know things, they're going to continue to know the thing that they know. It's not like they just lose that knowledge for the sake of a plotline. It's lazy writing at best, and it's very frustrating for readers. But if you do want to have a situation where a miscommunication or a misunderstanding happens, you have to do it the right way. If they are knowledgeable about a situation and you want them to have a misunderstanding about it, you need to introduce a subject that they don't understand. That way, the misunderstanding can cause conflict between the things they do know and they don't know. It can't just be a misunderstanding about something they already know. For example, Lee and Annie. Lee knows everything about Annie. Lee gave her all this stuff. He gave her the position of power that she's in at that moment. So he knows everything about her. There was no other thing that he didn't know being introduced to make him not understand what she was doing. He knew her position too well. He knew exactly what kind of position she was in. He knew exactly what kind of situation she was in. He knew what she needed to do to get things done because he already did it. So when you're working with that kind of situation, it just doesn't work to say, well, there's a misunderstanding. Because there isn't. He would understand this. The character from the first book would understand this. Now, say if Annie was introduced into a new position. Say Annie went somewhere else and she was offered all this stuff, like kind of at the end of the second book, she does go somewhere else where she has a different power level than Lee, and Lee doesn't exactly understand it. If that had been introduced at the beginning of the book, that would have made the plotline a lot better, because it's a situation that he knows a lot about, but it also has a situation that he doesn't know a lot about being introduced. That would lead to a lot of different misunderstandings. That would have worked. The same would have been with Jude and Cardan and everything that happened in the second and third book. If Jude had been in a situation that she didn't understand, maybe in the mortal world she had to deal with something with mortals, and maybe a mortal entered the Fae realm by accident and she had to deal with all that. She doesn't understand the mortals, but she understands the Fae realm. If there had been a miscommunication or a misunderstanding in that kind of situation, that would have worked a lot better. But no, the misunderstanding was in a world that she understands. The Jude from the first book and half of the second book would have been able to figure out what these situations mean and how to handle them. That is why those plot lines were very frustrating and why they didn't work. I've seen a lot of other readers complaining about this, and yet it continues to be a huge problem in YA fantasy and fantasy novels, and just books in general. So, to wrap up, if you have a character who knows things, specifically stated that they know things, do not have a plotline based around the fact of them misunderstanding or miscommunicating with the thing they know without introducing an unknown variable. It does not work, and it makes it very frustrating and lazy when you're reading a plotline about a character who would know things and is suddenly stupid in that area. It doesn't make sense. It's very frustrating, and it's demeaning to readers. It makes you think, you want me to believe this, but this is a character that you've already told me about who suddenly doesn't understand the situation. It doesn't work. So, to conclude, this is a message to authors. This situation doesn't work. You need to introduce unknown variables to be able to make a misunderstanding. So, that's all I wanted to rant about. It's just something I've noticed lately in the novels I've been reading, and it's been very frustrating. I hope there aren't too many novels on my list that have this situation, because honestly, I can't read it again. It's so frustrating, and it's just something so simple, and it's such lazy writing. So this is just a message to authors. This doesn't work. Thank you. So thanks everyone for watching this rant. I hope this made sense. I'll see you next time.